Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maddie and today I'm going to be giving you my top 10 favorite books of 2019. A couple of these are going to be repeats from my 2019 book awards, but I also have quite a few that were not on that list. It was somewhat difficult, but I actually managed to put them in order counting down to my most favorite book of the year. First, I have two honorable mentions because they were on this list until I read some books later in the year that replaced them, but I still really loved these books. They are One Pair of Summer by Denise Grover Swank and Hunted by Megan Spooner. This one is a YA fantasy Beauty and the Beast retelling, and this one is a cute contemporary YA summer romance set in Paris. And now on in to the countdown. Number 10 is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. This is an adult mystery thriller novel following this journalist who is on a work trip, and this work trip is actually set on a big yacht. And her first night aboard this boat, she's in her cabin and she hears a noise and she goes to investigate it, and she sees a woman's body being dumped overboard. And then of course she calls security, but upon investigation they realize that no one who is supposed to be aboard the boat is missing. This one was super mysterious and it always kept me thinking, which is why I loved it so much. I could never guess what was going to happen next in the story, so I really appreciated that about this novel. And this is also the book that got me into reading mystery and thrillers. Number 9 is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This is a YA mystery thriller novel and it follows this girl Sadie who has since gone missing after the death of her little sister. This book has two different perspectives. One is Sadie herself and the other is a man who runs this podcast investigating missing persons. And so half of this book is told in regular novel format from the perspective of the main character, and then the other perspective is actually the podcast. So if you listen to the audiobook for this one like I did, it's like actually listening to a real podcast, which I found so wonderful. It added so much to the story and it made it so much more enjoyable for me. I think I would have liked this book less if I had not listened to the audiobook, but I definitely recommend this one. And number 8 is Elusive by Emily Lloyd Jones. This is a YA dystopian superhero, supervillain-esque story. It is set in this dystopian world in which there was this huge virus that broke out and it was killing off the majority of the population, but thankfully this one scientist was able to develop a vaccine, but because they needed to distribute the vaccine so quickly, they didn't properly test it, and it turned out that this vaccine ended up giving a lot of people superhuman abilities. These people are called the immune, and there are different powers for the immune. They're separated into different categories, but the main character of the story is a female teenager, and she is an illusionist, meaning she can make people see whatever it is that she wants them to see. She can create an illusion of a specific event, and she can also change the environment around her. So with that ability, she's also able to make herself and others invisible. One thing about this book that made it particularly enjoyable for me is that the main character is kind of an anti-hero. She's a part of a white-collar criminal group, and so she has questionable morality. You can question her actions because they're not necessarily the right thing to do. She gets involved with mobsters, so she's not really a typical hero. I really enjoyed this one in 2019 as well as the sequel Deceptive. I think it is very much an underrated duology. And number 7 is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. I know this book gets a ton of crap, but I loved it. This is an adult contemporary romance story, but it's kind of more like a new adult novel. One of the main characters is an aspiring actress, and her dad is actually a famous actor himself. And she wants to leave LA to try and make it as an actress in New York. And it is her last day in LA, so she's at a restaurant eating lunch with her father, who she doesn't really get along with. And the boy at the table behind her overhears her conversation with her father, and so he steps in to defend her, and he pretends to be her boyfriend. And even though they don't know each other, they kind of have this instant connection, but she is moving to New York, so they decide not to have any kind of contact with each other, but every year on the same day that they met, they are going to meet back up, spend the day together, and then go their separate ways again. The relationship in this book isn't necessarily something to strive for, but I loved reading about it anyway. I consumed the story, so I don't really care about other people's negative opinions on this one. Of course, it's okay for you to not like this book, but but I really enjoyed it, therefore it made it to my top 10 list. Number 6 is This Song Will Save Your Life by Leela Sales. This is a YA hard-hitting contemporary following a teenage girl who has depression. She doesn't really fit in at school and she doesn't really have any friends, and this book is about her finding herself, finding out who she is, who she wants to be. One night while she's out walking the streets, she happens upon this underground dance club and she starts to make friends there, and she discovers that maybe this is where she's meant to be, maybe this is where she fits in. And this is when she starts training to become a DJ, and she's actually quite natural at it. It's a beautiful, hard-hitting story featuring mental health representation, so I loved it. And number 5 is Open Road Summer by Emery Lord. This is a YA contemporary story with hard-hitting themes, but it's also just a really cute book about friendship and romance. This story follows two best friends. One is a country music superstar, and she's kind of like the old school country Taylor Swift, and then her best friend is actually the main character of the story, and she's kind of like the rebellious polar opposite. The best friend, who is the country music star, is actually going on a tour for the summer, and she brings her best friend along, and it's supposed to be this great fantastic summer of them on tour together, but then things kind of get a little rocky when there's like this publicity scandal, and in order to save the singer's reputation, her record label invites this boy rock star to join her on the tour, and romance ensues. It's such a cute romance, but one of my favorite things about this book is the friendship between the two main characters. It is so close and strong and powerful. And another thing I loved about this book is all three main characters have something deeper going on in their lives, so it's not just a cute fluffy read. Number 4 is Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. This is a YA contemporary romance story with also some hard-hitting themes, but not quite as much. It definitely has a heavy focus on the romance, but there's also some family issues mixed in as well. This story follows two best friends who are now estranged, and they do not talk to each other whatsoever. They hate each other now, and you don't really know why. But then, unbeknownst to them, they actually get roped into a camping trip with each other. Basically, there's this big friend group of boys and girls who are going on this camping trip. Both of the main characters are invited, but they don't know that the other person is going to be there. And then on this trip, things go badly wrong, and the two of them get stranded together in the middle of nowhere. They're days away from civilization, and they have to survive. And they also have to face the issues between them, what happened to their friendship, and why do they hate each other now. This book is so cute. I absolutely loved the romance, but one thing I personally appreciated about this book is all the nature elements and the survival tips that are in this. If you like outdoor activities like hiking or camping, I think you will really like this one because of those aspects. And they made this book super unique. And now we're on in to the final countdown. Number 3 is The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. This is a YA hard-hitting contemporary story following a teenage girl who was raped by her brother's best friend. And the guy who raped her is pretty much like family, and she doesn't feel like anyone would believe her if she told the truth about what happened. This book follows the main character as she goes throughout high school, keeping this secret held in. It follows her as she grows up and as she tries to start relationships of her own, but her experience and her severe PTSD makes it difficult to actually open herself up to be in a relationship with someone. This book is so good. The mental health representation in this is fantastic, but I will say that this book actually does graphically show the rape scene, so if that's not something that you can handle, do not read this book whatsoever, because it can be very triggering for anyone who's experienced anything like that before, and just the PTSD representation in general can be triggering as well. This is hands down the best mental health representation book I have ever read. And number 2 is The Rebel of the Sands trilogy by Alwyn Hamilton. This is a YA fantasy story set in this Arabian Western world. The world and the magic system are what made me love this series so much, but basically any book with Arabian Persian culture in it, I'm pretty much guaranteed to love it. This book follows a teenage girl from a small desert town, and she actually disguises herself as a boy because she competes in these sharpshooter competitions. She is widely known as one of the best sharpshooters in the country, but no one knows that she's a girl. The main character actually lives with an abusive family, and it's pretty much her dream to escape her small town. And then one day she gets the opportunity to do just that because a foreigner shows up and he causes a lot of trouble within her town because the law law is after him, so she runs away with this foreign fugitive who she doesn't know, and then she gets wrapped up into these series of events. It gets wrapped up in rebellion and all sorts of things. I absolutely loved the magic system in this series. Several of the main characters throughout the trilogy are Dimgees, and Dimgees are half human, half genie, and each one has a unique magical power that they inherited from their genie parent. Super interesting, super unique. So much fun. And of course there's a romance, which I loved as well. And number one is probably not a shock to anyone who watches my channel, and that is the Renegades trilogy by Marissa Meyer. I have talked about this series so much recently about how much I love it and how I don't understand why people don't like it, because I honestly don't, but I don't want to sound like a broken record. This is a YA dystopian superhero supervillain story. It follows two main characters. One is a renegade, and the Renegades are this group of superheroes who have banded together to form this organization that is now international, and they essentially act as the governments of the world, but their methods are questionable. And then the other main character is an anarchist, and she is set on taking down the Renegades because she doesn't believe that what they're doing is actually helping the population. And she's also on a personal mission of vengeance against the Renegades. This series is so fantastic. I love the characters. I love the question of morality, because on both sides you see the good and bad, and you kind of side with both of them. And you want them to be able to meet in the middle. You can't fully root for either side. I love the relationships in this series, whether that be romantic, platonic, friends, family, you name it. It's there. I love it. I love the super abilities in this. The world is just so much fun. Alright, there you have it. Those are my top 10 favorite books of 2019. Let me know in the comments down below what one of your favorite books of 2019 was. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more bookish content by me. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.